Hi, my name is Mark Strice, and I'm doing a video on an assignment from basic ballistics. So the question, or the assignment was to ask an expert about reloading, and unfortunately I have some go-to people that I will talk to on a regular basis about firearms, who are, majority of them are FFLs and gun collectors and so forth. But none of them reload. Maybe like their grandparents reload or something like that, but they're not anywhere around here, or their parents, I guess. So I decided to do the video myself because I would assume that people in there would maybe ask me a reloading question because I do reload. So with that in mind, I just wanted to go over some of the equipment and basically what I do as far as reloading. I learned how to reload off of line. It's probably not the best way to do it. None of that learn offline between forums, YouTube videos, and then I actually really did. I read a lot of this book, well, the beginning of the book, because it has a lot of SAMI specs and powder weights and things like that, and different bullet weights. But the front of it tells you basically how to do it. It's done by Lee. And real quick, that's something I get excited about when I tell people, and they go, "Oh, you reload, and that's really expensive." And I go, "Yeah, it can be if you buy all the expensive stuff, but you can literally go and buy a package deal or little components from Lee or from like Brown Owls or Midway USA, and you can buy these Lee presses, and they're really very reasonably priced if you think about how expensive other things are when it comes down to firearms. So you would literally get a kit. There's some other things that you would have to buy, as far as like bullets. I've got lots of bullets back here. Cases, I got a lot of cases back here, and then also, a media tumbler or some things like that. So I'm very enthusiastic about Lee, and I know there's some people out there that probably say, "Oh, don't do Lee, that's cheap." Well, it's inexpensive, but it works, and it's worked for me. So with that in mind, I will either use new brass to reload, or I'll use once fired or fired brass from the range that I've shot, and I'll reload my own brass. Try not to pick up anybody else's brass, because you never know what you're picking up. So the process goes, I'll bring it home, I'll tumble it in a tumbler to clean it, basically. You can also wash it, or you can use, they have some of these sonic cleaners. I don't think I haven't used one of those. I think that's kind of expensive. But I would tumble it. Once it's cleaned, I would inspect it. And then I would deprime it, resize it with the press. Once it's been deprimed, resize, then I will take a gauge like this. This is a Wilson gauge. This is actually a bullet gauge. This is for 357, but I actually have like automatic cartridges gauges, which actually checks just the case. This checks the overall length for the bullet. It's a revolver, so you want to make sure that your bullet is not too big, otherwise it won't fit into the chamber of the revolver. But anyway, so I'll use a case gauge by Wilson, or I'll use a micrometer to check the case length. Once I've checked the case length, then I will set up 2 trays, and I'll do maybe a batch of 50 or 25 at a time, and I'll have my actually I have 2 different ways of putting powder in. I have this system, and then I also have Lee's disc system. A little finicky, but so I'll take my cleaned, sized, primed cases, and I'll start adding powder. And what I do is I have a scale. Every couple I'll weigh based on this. These are pretty accurate, but you just don't know. Maybe you bumped it, and now it's gone up in size. So you don't want to have too much powder, or have an inconsistent amount of powder in different bullets. What I'll do is I'll put the cases in here. Like I said, well, actually I have 2. I'll go from here, put powder in, put it in another case, and I'll look down into the cases, and I'll compare them all and make sure that they're all level. And after I'm done, I'll go back and I'll spot measure again, just as like a triple check, I guess, to verify. And real quick, I didn't mention priming. This is a priming tool, and it's actually I got to put it together. It's one of these inexpensive primers that priming tools that's sold by Lee, but I'm going to put it together right now. But anyway, so we've got now we have the powder in the actual cases, right? Then I will put on a new dye for bullet seeding, and I have bullets. I use like quantity, or sometimes I hate to I'll use like pulled bullets. It's the most economical way to do it if you are on a budget. And what I found interesting in this week's reading is that I believe it was at the end of the chapter 5, and it said that if you happen to buy second bullets or pulled bullets from manufacturers, they have issues with them, that you could swage them with the Corbin swaging equipment. So I was actually excited about that. I'm like, hey, maybe I don't have to have ugly bullets anymore. So anyway, so once the bullet's seeded, I'll put another dye in here, and I'll crimp it, and then you'll end up with a finished bullet. This is a 308 that I did, and a 5.56. I also do 357s, and believe it or not, like 44 Magnums. And I've gone as small. I don't think I would go. I don't think I'd go down to 25 caliber, but this is 380s, and I did it because I wanted to see that I could do it, because they're small bullets, and I'm doing on a single press. And some people might say, well, is that time wise? To me, it is. And here's some of the different types of bullets that I will use. Again, we have a boat tail, and this is actually a flat base, right? And it's funny now that after reading the course material, I look and I'll see some of the different methods that maybe the manufacturer had used as far as like swaging and leaving an open base, right? All right, so once the bullet has been crimped, if it is a revolver, I will check it with the bullet gauge. But what I do is, I'm constantly taking measurements with the micrometer. So people, when you're reloading, you really kind of have to pay attention to what you're doing. It is a hobby. It's a quiet hobby for me. There's a lot of measurements that need to be done as far as your equipment, making sure that everything's lined up, and then there's a little bit of testing when you're pulling down on the lever and seating, sizing the bullet, making sure the bullet's seated at the correct depth. Now there can be some problems. You can overcharge your cartridges. You can maybe invert one of your primer caps if you're not paying attention. I hope you wouldn't do this, but you could potentially, if you're not paying attention, seat the bullet in upside down maybe, and then you would have an unusual wad cutter. But so not that you want to take it for granted. So you really want to make sure that you're paying attention, you're measuring, and that you're using books as far as like the cartridge size, the case size, the grain weight, and that you're really paying attention, because if you go to the range, you could have a problem. It's a safety concern. This is something interesting that I think when you're a shooter, if you really enjoy guns and you have the space and maybe the extra time, you really should reload your own bullets, because it really gives you an understanding of what your firearm may be doing. So like if you feel a squib load, you're like, oh my gosh, that is not enough powder in that cartridge. Or if you do have a very powerful recoil and maybe a larger sound when the round discharges, you're like, wow, that was probably too much powder. So it's almost like a valuable learning lesson for the firearms person, and also for the gunsmith too. Real quick, and I didn't show, I used Lee dies, and this one is for the 458 SOCOM, which I think I've mentioned before in some of my things that I've written for the class, and that is, I really want to reload. I haven't done any yet, but I really wanted to reload 458, and I actually do have some manufactured bullets, but I would like to, and I was initially going to cast my own bullets, but then I saw the swaging, and I was like, wait a minute, maybe I can swage my own bullets. So that's something that I'm going to keep in the back of my mind. But anyway, this is my setup. It's a small setup. I think that if you have a small space, an average person really could reload their own bullets. It's a lot of fun, and it's a learning, and it's a good learning experience. And I would recommend it to anybody. Thank you.